Hi, my name is Jamal Khan and I'm a web developer, and I've been working with many different companies and projects since 2015. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a full responsive and dynamic website using the open source technologies such as HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, and MySQL. And the requirements to create a full responsive and dynamic websites for a project, we will be using Notepad++ as our IDE, and we are going to use Google Chrome to display and show our results of the project. And we are going to use Encoding as a plugin. Now, Encoding is a plugin which can help you to build and develop your website very fast. And you can install Encoding inside your Notepad++ IDE as a plugin. And the last tool which you are going to use is Font Awesome. Now, Font Awesome is a library where you can find many different icons and you can use them in your web projects for free. And the project which we are going to build in this tutorial will be a project for a gem. And as you can see, it's a complete website, and we are going to rebuild this website from start till the end. And I'm going to show you step by step on how to create your own website. The first step to create your website will be creating your project directories. So as you can see on the desktop, I have created a folder by name of gem. Inside gem, I have a folder by name of CSS, and I can place all my CSS files, and I can use these CSS as external to my website. And the next folder which I have used is Font Awesome, and the Font Awesome is a library where you can install and you can download it for free from internet. And we are going to create a link between this file and our HTML file. And the next folder which we have is image. Now inside image, I have placed all my important images, and I'm going to use them in this project. And the last folder which I have created is JS. Now inside JS, I can place my JavaScript codes, and I can create a link between my project and my JavaScript codes. And then I have created a file by name of index.html. As you can see, it's empty and I don't have anything on it yet. So let's get started and let's see how to create your website structure. To create your website structure, you need to know what kind of website are you going to create. So we have the demo right now, and we are going to rebuild this from start to the end, step by step. So on the top left side, we have a text by name of Gemna. So here we go. So first of all, I have to write doctype HTML, which is going to define my HTML version, which is HTML5. And then I'm going to have my HTML head, and inside head I'm going to have my title. Now this is a technique called Zencoding, and if you don't know how to use Zencoding, you can go back to my YouTube channel and you can learn on how to install and use Zencoding. So here we go. I'm going to write Gemnast, and then inside body I'm going to create a div, and I will name it as main. So I'm going to add a class by name of main, and inside this I'm going to create a heading by name of Gemnast. So let's see what we have next. The next thing which I'm going to create on the right top side, I have a menu. So let's do this and let's see how many options we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So here we go. I'm going to create another div, and I will call it as top nav. And inside top nav, I'm going to create 6 links. So you can do it very easily using Zencoding. The first one would be home. The second one is about. And the third one is about features, classes, page, and the last one is contact. So you can save it, and you can go back here and you can just create another class by name of active. So I'm going to show this as active on my website. And the next thing which I'm going to do here is that I'm going to create another link by name of icon. So I'm just doing this because I want to build my website as responsive. So if you want to add the features of responsive design, you can build another link and you can just write something like this I, and inside this we have a class by name of FA, and inside FA we have a class by name of parts. So this will just help us to display our web page as responsive, our menu is responsive, and it's a class of font awesome. Now we also have to link our font awesome here, so you can go back to your head and you can write something like link, and inside this you can link your font, and inside font we have all, inside all we have CSS, and then we have all.css. Let me show you guys. As you can see, I have a folder by name of font, and inside font I have a directory by name of CSS. Inside this directory I have a file by name of all.css. Now inside all.css, all the important icons which is available, we can place it here with the class, so there's no need to add. You can go back and you can just run your page. So this is the icon which I'm talking about, and this icon is available on Font Awesome, and you can use this using Font Awesome very easily. So the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to create another div, and inside this div I'm going to place my this text with this button. So I can create another div by name of center, and inside this I'm just going to create a h2 and one h1 followed by button. Inside h2 I just can copy this text and paste it here, and the same thing I'm going to do with h1. So I'm going to copy this and going to paste it here, and inside button I'm going to write join us now. So to save this and go back to your browser and just reload your page. So here it is. The next thing which we have two divs, one on the left side and one on the right side. So you can create your structure using another div. So you can create another div and you can name it as section. And inside section, I'm going to have one div for my left side, and I'm going to have another div on my right side. On the left side, I'm just going to copy this text and I'm going to place it inside h1 and I'm going to paste it. And I'm also going to add another paragraph, and I'm just going to copy this and you can add your text here. And the last thing which we need inside this div is we are going to have a button, and inside button we are going to write join now. So in the same structure you can just copy this and you can paste for the right side, but the only text of the heading one is going to be changed. So you just can copy this and you can paste it here and you can save this. So we are done with the section div, and you can see the result here. So we have this one and we are going to design it using CSS, and this one for the right side. And the next thing which we have is we have an image on the left side and we have a text on the right side. So we can create another div and we are going to call it as about. Inside above I'm going to create a div by name of image, or I'm just going to call it as left, and I'm just going to have another div by name of right. Inside left I'm going to add my image. Now as you can see on my project directories, I have a folder by name of image, and inside image I have a file by name of about.jpg. So you can just write your address like this: image, inside image I have about.jpg. So you can save this, go back to your browser and just reload your page. So as you can see now, we have already uploaded our image on our website. And the next thing which we are going to do, we are going to write this text. So you can copy this and you can write inside h1 and you can paste it. And you can also copy your paragraph and you can paste it inside your paragraph. And now we need two more divs, one for the left side and one for the right side. So I can add another div, and inside div I'm just going to add my image. So now the image which I'm going to use here is inside image. I have an image by name of 1.jpg, and this also have h2. So you can copy this text and you can paste it here. And we also have information for this icon, and you can just copy this and you can paste it on h and paragraph. So we are going to copy this structure with the div overall, and we are going to paste it once more, and we are just going to change the name for 2.jpg, and we are also going to change the name for this. So you can copy this and you can paste it here. And the last thing which we need is that we need to create another button, but outside these divs, because it's going to be related to directly to write. And inside this we are going to write learn more. You can save this and go back to your browser and just reload your page. So as you can see now, we have our icons, we have our text, everything on the right place. So we are also done with the about section. So now let's create this part of our project. To create this part of our project, we need to build 3 divs, and we are going to place them side by side. So how you can do this? You can create another div, and I'm just going to name this as 3, and I'm going to create divs. So the first div is going to be about left, and the second div is going to be with the name of middle, and the third div is going to be by name of right. For the left side, the first thing which I need is we are going to add image, and inside image folder we have an image by name of l.jpg. So we're going to save this and go back to the browser and just reload your page. So as you can see now, this image is uploaded successfully. And the next thing which we need a text or a heading text. So you can copy this and paste it inside h2. And the next thing which we need is our information, which is placed inside the paragraph. So you can copy your paragraph and you can paste it here. Now you just can copy your first div contents and you can just paste it on your second one and also on the third one. And you are just going to change the name for this. So this is going to be M and this is going to be R, because we have these files in our folder. So as you can see inside image, we have L, we have M, and we have R. So this is how you can rename them. And we're also going to rename our headings. So I'm just going to paste it here, and the last one I'm just going to copy this and paste on my third div. So you can save them and go back to your browser and just reload your page. And as you can see on the bottom of the page, we have successfully added these contents as well. And the next thing which you are going to design is something like this: subscribe our newsletter. So here we go. I'm going to add another div inside div. I'm going to name this as subscribe. Inside subscribe, I'm going to add h1, and inside h1 I'm going to write something like this: subscribe our newsletter. And I'm just going to copy this and I'm just going to place it inside the paragraph. And the next thing which we need a form. So inside form we are going to create one input for our email and one input for our submit. So here we go. We are going to create a form. Inside form we are going to create an input, and the type is going to be email, and you are going to add placeholder, and inside placeholder we are going to write your email. So you can save this and go back to your browser and just reload your page. And now as you can see on the bottom of the page we have an input by name of your email. And now the next thing which I'm going to add another input, and the type is going to be submit, and we are going to add a value for this, and the value is going to be subscribe. You can save this and go back to your page and just reload. So you can see now we have a button by name of subscribe followed by your email. So we are also done with the subscribe or newsletter section, and the next section which we are going to design is the table. To design our table, we need to create another div by name of table, and inside this table I'm just going to add an h2, and I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. And I'm also going to create another h1. So here we go, h1, and inside h1 I'm going to place this text, and then we have some links. So to create these links, you can just do something like this. I'm going to create an unordered list. Inside this unordered list, I'm going to have 4 lists, and each list should have a link inside. So you can just press Ctrl E, and this is the benefits of Zen coding. As you can see now, this is created very fast and very properly. So now I'm just going to write all classes for my first link, and the second link is going to be cardio, the third one is going to be CrossFit, and the fourth one is going to be, what was it? It was powerlifting. So here we go, powerlifting. Save this and go back to your browser and just reload your page. So as you can see, we have these tags followed by the links, and using CSS we are going to design them as well. Okay, and now we are going to create our table. So here we go. To create our table, we need to know how much records and how much columns do we need. We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need 8 columns. So here we go. We are going to create a table. Inside table, we are going to create our TR, our table record. And inside our first table record, we are going to add 8 headings. So just press Ctrl E, and this is how Zen coding will help you to create its structure. So I'm just going to name it as time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can save this, and now you can create your another columns, your records. So you can add another tr inside tr. The first one is going to be our th, and the next 7 of our columns are going to be td. So here we go, td multiply 7, and the first one you can just copy this and paste it. So I'm just going to do it a bit quickly so it won't waste your time, because the structure is same for each and every one of them. And here it is, we are done, and we have created the table structure as well. So you can create your tables like this. And now I'm just going to save this and go back to my browser, and I'm just going to reload my page. So as you can see, we have created the table on the bottom of the page. And the next thing which we are going to design, we are going to design another section by name of what is BMI. So here we go. I'm going to create another div, and I will call it as BMI. And inside BMI, I'm just going to create a div, and I'm going to place it on the left side. And I'm also going to create another div, and I'm going to place it on the right side. Now for the left div, we are going to copy this text, and we are going to place this inside h2. And we are also going to create another h1, and we just can copy this text and you can place it inside h1. And now you can also copy this and you can place this inside your paragraph. So here it is. And for the right side, we need to have an h1, and we're just going to call it as calculate your BMI. And now we need to create a form, and this form will have some inputs. So here we go, I'm just going to create a form. Inside form, I'm just going to create an input, and the input type is going to be text, and then we are just going to have a placeholder, Now as you can see, the text here width or height, now this is called placeholder, so I can write width. So the first one is width, yeah, and I'm just going to write inside braces kg, and I'm just going to create a duplicate for this, and this one is going to be height. I'm going to do another duplicate, and I'm going to write h. And as you can see, the gender, now the gender is not an input. You cannot create something like this using input. Now this is an drop down menu, so to create a drop down menu you need to use select, and inside select you can add your options. Now the first option is going to be gender as my caption or name, and then I'm going to add two options, one for male and one for female. You can save it and you can go back to your browser and just reload your page. And now you can see we have created calculate your BMI, and we have weight, height, age, and you can see now the gender is like a drop down menu. And then you can create your input, and you can add the type as submit, and then you can add your value by name of calculate, and you can save it and go back to your browser and refresh. Now as you can see, we have a button by name of calculate. So this is how we have created our calculate your BMI structure as well. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to create our trainers section. So to do this, we are going to create another div by name of trainer. Inside trainer we are going to have an heading 2, so here we go, h2, and you can just copy this and paste it here. And the next thing is we are going to create h1, and we're just going to copy this and paste it here. Now to create a structure like this, we need to have another we need to create another div, and inside this div we are going to place our image with this caption. So here you go, we can create a div by name of gallery, and in this I'm going to add another div by name of image, and then I'm going to add another div by name of caption. Inside image I'm going to place my image. Now inside image I have a file by name of team1, I think it's something like this, team1.jpg if I'm not wrong. So let's see, is it okay? Yeah, it's okay. And inside caption I'm just going to add an h2, and I'm just going to write trainer name. So now you just can copy the image.gallery structure and you can paste it for 3 more times, and this is going to be 4, and this is going to be 3, this is going to be 2, and the first one is going to 1. So you can save and go back to a browser and just refresh. So we have added these files successfully. And now we are going to design our last structure of the website, which is going to be our footer. So now let's do this. To design our footer, we need to add a tag by name of footer, just because we only can have one footer on our website, so you can just call this as footer. And inside footer we are going to create divs, so you can see how many divs do you need, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can create 4 divs, and inside them you're going to add your content. So it's very easy, you just can copy this and you can place it inside h2. And then we need ULLI, and we need 3 lists. So here we go. The first one is going to be our address, the second one is going to be our phone number, and the third one is going to be our email address. And on the second div you can have another h2, and you can just name it as quick links. And you can also have another links, so I'm just going to add 5 lists, and all of them should have links. And the links are going to be a home, about, and then we have features, and then we have classes, and we have contact. So here we go, and I just can copy this, and I'm just going to paste it for the next step, and I'm just going to change the name to popular links. Popular links, here we go. And on the last div, we are going to have another h2 by name of opening hours, and inside this I'm going to have another ul li, and I just need for lists. So for the first one, I'm going to copy this and paste it here, and for the second one I'm going to copy this and paste it here, and I'm also going to copy this and paste it here, and the last one is 2. So we have done our HTML structure successfully, and now let's begin with designing with CSS. So as you can see, we have done our all structure using HTML, and now we can add some CSS styles to our website to look better. So to do this, the first thing which you have to do is that you have to create a link between your HTML file and your CSS file. So here we go. We have a file inside index. Sorry, we have a file inside CSS, and inside CSS we have a file by name of index.css. As you can see, it's a blank page and we don't have anything yet. So now we can just go back to our HTML file, and we can write another tag by name of link, and the relationship would be style sheet. And inside this we are going to write CSS and index.css. Now this CSS is our directory name, and inside CSS we have index.css file. So you can save this, and now let's check, are we connected to our CSS or not. So we are going to select our body, and we are just going to add a background color just to make sure that we are connected to our HTML using CSS or not. So as you can see, we are connected to our CSS file, and we can just remove this back. And now the first thing, writing your CSS code would be doing your CSS reset. Now what is CSS reset? As you can see in our web page, all these elements have some padding and margins, and we need to remove all of them, and we have to set them by the as your own values. So you can add padding 0 to this, and you can add margin 0. And now this selector is a wildcard, which means you have to select all the elements. And now you can go back to your browser and just reload your page. You can see all these padding and margins have been removed. And the next thing which you are going to do is we're going to add font family. Now the font family for this website is going to be Arial and Impact. And you can also see the result, all these fonts are going to be changed. And the next thing which we are going to do, we are going to start our designing from our first step. So the first step, we have a div by name of main. So you can write your selector like this, div.main means we are going to select our main div. And the first thing, we are going to add some padding. Now the padding from the top and bottom side would be something like 40 pixels, or we're going to have 30 pixels, and from the left and right it's going to be something like 20 pixels. So you can save them and go back to your browser and just reload your page. Okay, so you can see from the top side and we have from the left side we have added some margins and paddings. And the next thing which we are going to do, we are going to add height. Now the height is going to be something like 100 VH, which means 100%. So you can just refresh your page and you can see now we have this area is our main div. And the next thing which we are going to do, we are going to add some background. So here we go, background image, and then you can write your path here. So the first thing what you have to do is that you have to just skip back from your folder, because right now we are on the index.css file which is located inside CSS. So just go back and you can find your image. So you can just write now image directory. Inside image directory we have a file by name of back.jpg. So you can save this, go back to your browser and just refresh your page. So as you can see, we have our background here on the page. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to change our font color to white. So you can add color white. As you can see now, these colors are displayed as white. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to select our div.main. Inside that we have h1. And the first thing, in each one we are going to add a font size. So the font size is going to be 3em. 3em is equal to 300%, and we need to add 4, so it will be a little bit bigger. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to change our this name to Gem as capital, just like this. And the next thing which you are going to change is the top nav. Now the top nav have to be moved on the right side. So you can write div.main, and inside div.main we have div.topNav. Now your top nav should be floated. You can write float right. So it will just move to the right side. As you can see now it's moved to the right side. And you can also add position to that. So the position is going to be absolute. And then for the main.div you can add position as relative. And you can go back and just refresh your page. And now you can write from the top side, I need to be 30 pixels, and from the right side it must be 20 pixels. So as you can see now, it's placed here very well. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to select our div.main. Inside that we have div.topNav, and then we have UL. So the UL is going to be list the style type none. So you are going to remove the style type to none. And as well as we are going to select our div.main, div.topNav, our links. And the first thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the color to white. So as you can see our elements well. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to add some padding. Now the padding from the top and right side will be something 30 pixels, and from the left and right is going to be 40 pixels. So you can refresh your page and you can see we have a big amount of padding here. But we don't need that much paddings. We have to reduce our padding. So I'm just going to add 20 pixels, and if you add one value, it will be applied on the 4 sides. So you can see now we have something like this. And now you can go back to your div.main and div your top nav, and you can add a background color here. So here we go. I'm going to write a background color of black. And now let's see, we have a background color as well. And we can also add some padding here. So the padding is going to be about 20 pixels. So you can refresh and you can see that we have added padding to this as well. And now I'm just going to add a font size to my links. So the font size is going to be 1.1 em, which is equal to 110%. And I'm also going to add text decoration. Now text decoration will help me to remove my underline, so you can add the null value to it. As you can see, we have no underlines on our links. And we're also going to add a pixel class of hover. So you can just copy this and you can add the pixel class of hover by adding a column and writing hover, which means when we are just hover to these elements, the color should be changed to red. So as you can see now, when you just scroll to these buttons or just hover to these buttons, the color is going to be changed to red. And the last thing which we are going to do for now, we are going to just remove this, because we are just going to show this when our page has been minimized or the device has been changed. So right now we don't need this at all. So you can write div.main. Inside that we have div.topNav, and inside div.topNav we have an icon. So the icon is going to be displayed as null. So we cannot see this anymore on this view. And once just we have resized our web page, and then we can add this using the responsive tools. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to add another selector using div.main, div.topNav, and then we have another link by name of active. And for the active, I'm just going to add the color red. So as you can see now, the first one is in the red color, which means it's active right now. And now I'm just going to design these elements. Now to design these elements, you need to select div.main. Inside that we have div.center. And the first thing is that I'm going to set a width of 60%. And I'm just going to tell it margin auto. And I'm also going to add position of relative. Now you can refresh and you can see we have added these elements, these properties. And then you can also write text align center, which will help you to justify it on the center side. And now let's see what we need next. I'm going to add another div. I'm going to add div.main. Inside that we have div.center, and inside div.center we have h2. So now the color for the h2 is going to be red. So here we go. As you can see now, it's shown as red. And I'm also going to add some padding from the top side. So padding top is going to be 60 pixels. So as you can see now, I have a little space between my null and this text. So I'm just going to add 100 pixels because I need to display it a little bit more on top. So I'm just going to add 120 pixels. So here it is. I'm going to add 150 or 140. So I have changed the value to 150. So as you can see now, the text has been displayed on this side. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my h1. So here we go. You can write div.main, div.center, and then we have h1. Now the first thing which I'm going to add is that I'm going to add a text shadow. So you can add 1 pixel, and then you can add your color, and the color is going to be something like this, which is very similar to black. And then just refresh the page, and you can see now it have a little bit of shadow. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to add some padding from the top side. So I'm going to add a padding of 40 pixels. You can just refresh your page. As you can see, there is some padding between your text. And then I'm just going to select my button. Before that, I'm also going to add some padding from the bottom side. So the bottom side is going to be 50 pixels. And now as you can see, the button is displayed on the bottom side. And now I'm going to select my button. So my button is placed inside center div. So the first thing, I'm going to add padding of 20 pixels and 30 pixels. Now the 20 pixels is going to be set on the top and bottom, and the 30 for the left and right. And then I'm just going to add background, and the background is going to be none because I don't need any type of background for this. And then the color is going to be white, and then I'm going to have border of 2 pixels solid and white. So you can just refresh your page and you can see we have a button like this. And you can also add font size. Now the font size is going to be 1.2 EM, which is equal to 120 pixels. And I can also add cursor of pointer, where once you hover, it will show as a link. And I can also add a piece2 class of hover to my this button to display it better. So you can write something like this. And then I'm just going to add a background color of white with color of black. So refresh your page and go back. As you can see now, it has hover as well. And to display it a little bit more beautiful, you can add transition as well. So you can add transition to your button, and the transition is going to be for background color, and the duration for this is going to be 0.3 seconds. And I'm also going to add another transition for my color, and the timing for that would be 0.3 seconds. So let me add S as well. You can go back and just refresh your page, and now you can see that it has a little bit transition as well. So this is how we have created our first section for the project. And now let's design our next section. The next section is about the bodybuilding and muscle building. So as you can see on the real website or the Dean website, we have a design like this. So here we div.section, and then just refresh your page. And inside div.section, now what we need to do is that we need to add some padding. Now the padding from the top and bottom is going to be 0, but from the left and right it's going to be 100 pixels. So refresh your page, sorry, here, and as you can see we have a padding from the left and right side, but we don't have padding from the top and bottom side. And the next thing is going to be that we are going to select our div section, and then we have another div. So for this div, we are going to set a width of 90%, and we are going to add some padding of 5%. Now this 5% plus 90% will give you 100, because now this padding will be applied on the 4 sides. Now for the width dimensions, we only have left and right. So for the left we have 5, and for right we have 5. Now 5 plus 5 is equal to 10, and 10 plus 90 will give you 100. So this is how we have the 100 value for our width now. So you can save them and go back to your browser and just refresh your page. And now you can see now they both are on the top and bottom side, and it's because that we have set a width of 100%, so we have to change this. So I'm going to add 40%. Now 40 plus 5 and 5 will give you 50. So the 50 will come to the left side and the next one will go to the right side. Now this concept works fine. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a background color. So here we go. A background color for the left side would be red. So I'm going to write red, and the color is going to be white. And for the right side, the background color is going to be black, and the text color is going to be white. So you can save and go back and just reload your page. And now as you can see, we have a left and right divs with the color of red and black. And inside left, now we have to select our elements, div.section and then div.left, and the first thing we have is h1. Let me check if it's f1 or h1 or h2. Yeah, it's h1. Now for the h1, I'm just going to add a padding. From top and bottom, I'm going to add 40 pixels, but from the left and right, I'm going to add 0. So here we go. As you can see now, we have a little bit padding from bottom and from bottom, but we don't need to add from bottom too much. So you can add individually. Padding dash top about 40 pixels, but padding dash bottom is going to be something like 20 pixels. So I think now it's enough. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the font size to 3em. Now this will give you a result like this. And you can also change the text alignment to right. You can write text align right. And once you write this on your div, it will be applied to all elements. So you can see all your elements will be moved to the right side. And now I can select my paragraph and I can add some line height, and I can just add some line height to them as well. So I can just go back and select my div.section, div.left, and paragraph. Now I'm going to add line height of 1.5. So you can see now there will be some padding between them as well. And I'm also going to add some padding dash bottom. So padding dash bottom is going to be about 30 pixels. So as you can see now, this will be shown on the bottom side. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my button, div.section. Inside this we have div.left, and then we have our button. Now the button needs padding. So the padding for the top and bottom is going to be 30 pixels and left and right 30 pixels. And the font size is going to be 1.2 em. So refresh this, as you can see that we have this button like this. And the next thing which we need is that we have to remove the background. So here we go, we can write background and we can add none. And just refresh your page, and then we can write color as white, and the border 2 pixels, solid and white. And just refresh. And then it will be displayed something like this. And you can add a little bit margin from the bottom side. So you can write margin dash bottom of 10 pixels. And just refresh your page. And now you can just copy these all. And you can just paste it here for the right side. And I'm just going to add the right class on them because the style is same to same. Just we need to change the alignment. So you can save them and go back and just refresh your page. And as you can see now, they both are being designed, one for the left side and one for the right side. And the last step which we are going to do is that we are going to display it as overlay. So how you can do that? You can just go back to your section and then you can add a position for it. Now the position is going to be relative, and from the bottom I'm just going to move this about 80 pixels. So now as you can see, it will be displayed something like this. So here we go, we have designed our first 2 sections successfully. And now let's design our about section. Now to design our about section, we will go back to our about section. So here we go, we will write div.about, and then we are going to add some padding. Now the padding from the top and bottom is going to be something like 70 pixels, and from the left and right is going to be 100 pixels. So here we go. As you can see now, these both are on the same padding size. Write div.about, and inside it we have div.image or div.left, and the width for this is going to be 50%. And I'm also going to add some padding, or I'm just going to add some width for the image. So you can select div.image, div.about, div.left, and then we have image. And now the image size is going to be something like 95%. So you can save it, go back and just refresh your page. And now as you can see, it's now a little bit smaller than the actual size. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to flood this to the left side. And I'm also going to select my div.about, div.right, and I'm going to set float to the right, and I'm also going to set width of 50%. So you can save this, go back to your browser and just reload your page. And now as you can see, we have the image on the left side and we have the text on the right side. And I have set a width of 95% for the image just because I need a little bit space between these two elements. And now I'm just going back to my div.about. Inside this we have div.right, and then I have h1. So for the h1 I'm going to set as font size of 3em, which is almost 300%. So you can save this. As you can see, we have now a larger text. And I'm also going to change the padding for this. So I'm going to add padding dash bottom, and the padding is going to be about 30 pixels. So you can save this, go back to your browser and just refresh your page. As you can see now, we have a padding between the heading and this paragraph. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my paragraph inside the right div. So here we go, div.about, div.right, and then I'm going to select my paragraph. For the paragraph, I'm going to set padding dash bottom of 20 pixels. So as you can see now, there's a little bit padding between these two elements. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my div.about, div.right, and inside div.right I have another div. So for this div I'm going to set a width of 45%, and I'm going to float this to the left side. So as you can see now, they both are displayed side by side. And now let's add a border and let's check how much width do they have. 1 pixel, solid, and black. So I'm doing this just to check the element size. So as you can see now, we have set a size of 45% for them. And now you can add margin dash right of almost 2%. So you can save now. As you can see, there's a little bit of space between them. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to remove the border, and I'm just going to select these elements as well. Here we go. I'm going to select div.about, div.right. Inside this we have another div, and inside this div I have an element of h2. So for the h2 I'm going to set a padding from the top side of almost 20 pixels. So here we go. As you can see now, there's a little bit of space between them. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to add space for my bottom side. So here we go, padding dash bottom is equal to 20 pixels. And now I'm just going to select my learn more button. So here we go, div.about, and then you can select your button. and for the button I'm going to set a position of relative, and from the left side I'm going to add 0 pixels. And I'm also going to see the structure for this button, that where this button has been located. So here we go. This button is inside div.right, so it should be moved to inside button. So now as you can see, it's now floated to the left side, and now I can just go back there and I can add some padding. So I'm going to add padding of 20 pixels for the top and right, top and bottom, and 40 pixels from the left and right. And I'm going to save this, and I'm just going to click on it. And the next thing, I'm going to add some font size. So the font size is going to be 1.2 em, and the color is going to be red, and the border is going to be 2 pixels solid and black. And I don't need any background, so here we go, background none. So you can refresh now. As you can see, we have something like this, and I also can change this to red, so the border is going to be displayed as red. And now I can just reduce my padding. So here we go, I can add 30 pixels and 15 pixels. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to add cursor for that. The cursor is going to be pointer. So whenever you hover on this button, it will display that link. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to add a pseudo class of hover. So you can just write div.about and then button hover. It means whenever I just hover on this button, so the background should be red and the color should be white. And now you can see, whenever you just hover on this button, the background color and the color will be changed automatically. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to add a transition for this. So the transition I'm going to add for the background color, which is going to be 0.4 seconds, and for the color as well, which is going to be 0.4 seconds. And now you can refresh this, and now as you can see, we have added a transition to this button. So we are done with this button, and the final thing which I'm going to do for this button is that I'm going to add a position from the top side. It's going to be almost 30 pixels. So here we go. As you can see now, it will be displayed on the bottom side of the div. So we have successfully designed our this structure as well. And now we are going to design this structure. To design this structure, we'll have a look on the template. So as you can see, we have a design like this. Now to design something like this, we need to find its HTML structure. So here we go. As you can see, we have a div by name of 3. Inside this we have left, middle, and right, 3 more divs. So the first thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to select my 3 divs, or the div which has the class of 3, and I'm going to add clear both, and this will help me to display these elements on its own place. So you can refresh this, and as you can see now, it's not displaying there because it's now displaying on its actual place. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to select my div.3, and then I'm going to select my divs, and for these divs I'm going to add a padding of 5%. Now 5 plus 5 will give you 10. 5 from the left side and 5 from the right side is equal to 10. And now we have 3 divs, so we want to display something like this. Let me show you on MS Paint. So this is going to be your div.3, and we are going to display 3 divs inside this. This is going to be the first div, this is going to be the second div, and just imagine this is the third div. And now we need something like this. We have added 10, 10, and 10% for this padding. So now how much more value we have to add that should give us 100? Now 10 plus 10 plus 10 gives us 30. So we have 70% left to design. And the next 70% we can give a width of, for example, 20. And now 20 plus 10 will give you 30. 30 plus 30 is equal to 60. 60 plus 30 will give you 90. So here we go. And now we have 10% left. So we can add 23. And now 23 will just give you the same result which we want. So here we go. We can go back here and we can write width of 23%. And then we are going to display them float left and have a look here. Just refresh. As you can see now, we have plotted all of them side by side, and now it's almost giving us the 100%. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to select my div.tree. Inside this we have div.left, and now for the div.left I'm going to add a background color of black, and the color for this is going to be white. And go back and just refresh, and now as you can see now it's displayed as black. And for the next one we are going to select div.middle, and the middle is going to be red. So here we go, background dash color is equal to red, and the color for this is going to be white. Refresh, and now as you can see we have something like this. And for the next one we have div.right, and we are going to add another background color of black, and the color is going to be black white as well. So here we go. And now the problem which we have, as you can see, the height of these three elements are not equal. So you can add the height here. You can go to your div and you can add height, for example 250 pixels. So this will give you the same size heights, or you can add 220 pixels. So you can add 200 pixels. And now as you can see, the height for these elements are then the same size. And the next thing which we are going to do, we are going to select div.tree. Inside that we have div, and inside of that we have image, and we are going to set a weight of 20%. And we're also going to add display, or we are just going to just float them to the left side, and just have a look, and just we can refresh them, or we can add something like 30%, so it will give you a larger size. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to select my div.tree. Inside that we have div, and inside that div we have our h1. Let me check what it is. It's h2 and paragraph. So here we go, for h2 and for paragraph. I'm going to set a weight of 68%, and I'm going to float them to the right side. Okay, that should be 68%. So this will give you something like this. And now I can just select my paragraph and h2 individually. So here we go. I can write div.tree. Inside this I have div, and inside this div I have h2. And for the h2 I am going to add padding dash bottom, and the padding bottom is going to be 30 pixels, and it will give you a result like this. And then I can select div.tree. Inside this I have div, and inside this I have paragraph, and for the paragraph I'm going to add line height of 1.5, and here we go, and this will give you a result like this. So if you want to reduce the padding from the bottom side, you can add something like 10 or 20. So whatever looks beautiful, you can add this very easily. And the next thing which we are going to design is we are going to design our newsletter section. So here we go. First of all, we have to check our subscribe section. As you can see, we have div, and we have a class by name of subscribe. And inside this, we have h1 paragraph and a form. So here we go, div dot subscribe, and for this, the first thing which I'm going to add is that I'm going to add clear both, and I want this section to be displayed on its actual place. Okay, subscribe. Let me check the. It's okay. And the next thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to add some padding to this. So the padding from the core side is going to be 5%, and I'm going to add a weight of 90%. Now 10 plus 90 will give us 100. So you can see this is displayed something like this. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to select my div dot subscribe, and inside subscribe I have h1. Now the h1 is going to be have a font size of 3.5 em, which will give you 350%. And then I just can select all my elements and I can justify them to the center. So here we go. You can change the text align for the center. And now I can select my h1 and I can add some padding from the bottom side, and the padding from the bottom side is going to be 30 pixels. So now as you can see, there's a little space between your paragraph and your heading, just like this. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to select my subscribe, and inside subscribe I have paragraph. Now I'm also going to add some padding from the bottom side, and this is also going to be 30 pixels. So this will give you something like this. And now I'm going to add a background image for my subscribe div. So you can do this on your subscribe class. You can write background image, and you can write your path inside parentheses. And the first thing which I have to do, that I have to get back from this folder, and I have to go inside image, and inside image I have a folder image by name of back.jpg. You can save this and go back to your browser and just reload. So now let me check what more we have. We have another image by name of new bg. So you can write new bg, and you can just look that we have another image here. And now I can just change the font color to white, so I can just see the text inside this. And the next thing which I want to do is that I want to change my design for the, and you can write div.subscribe. Inside subscribe I have form, and inside form I have input. So you can write the type. The first one is email. Now for the email I want to have padding of 5 pixels. So now as you can see, this is a little bit this will show bigger. I just can add 10 pixels, so this will help me to display something like this. You can add font size of 1.1 em, which is almost equal to 110%. And the next thing which I want to do is that I want to select my subscribe. Inside subscribe I have form, inside form I have input, and the type for this input is submit. So you can select your elements using attributes as well. And for this I'm going to add a padding. Now the padding from the top and bottom side is going to be 10 pixels, from the left and right it's going to be 20 pixels. Now this will give you a result something like this. So add a font size of 1.1 em. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to remove border. So you can write border and you can add none. So this will remove the borders. And the next thing, I'm going to add a position, and the position is going to be relative. And from the right side, I'm just going to add 3 pixels. So this will help me to remove this space or this gap between these two elements. Or you can add 4 pixels. Now you have to find a value that should be shown like this. And the next thing, I want to add a background color. So the background color for this is going to be red, and the color is going to be white. And the next thing which I need to do is that I need to add a little bit more padding. So this will help me to display it properly. So now we are done successfully. As you can see, now we have the button and the subscribe input here. And the next thing which I'm going to do, that I'm going to add a cursor, and the cursor value is going to be pointed. So this will display as a link here. I can add the margin dash top of 30 pixels. Or I can add something like position relative, and from the top side I'm going to add 30%. So as you can see, now this is working, and you can add a space between these two elements. So we are also done with the subscribe div. The next section which we want to design is our table. Now to design our table like this, we need to find the structure of the table. So here we go to the HTML file, and we have div the table here. So you can go back to your CSS file and you can write div.table, and the table is going to have padding of 5%, and it's going to have a width of 90%, and the text align with these elements are going to be center. And you can go back and just refresh your page. So as you can see, we have something like this. And you can also do something like this. You don't have to add width, you only just have to add padding. And the padding from the top and bottom side is going to be 20 pixels, from the left and right side is going to be 100 pixels. And now this will give you a result like this. And the next thing which we need to do is that we need to add clear both, and this will help us to display these elements on the actual size or actual place. And the next thing which I can do is that I can add a position of relative, and from the top side we can just add 30 pixels of space, and this will be displayed like this. Or you can add a little bit more, 40 pixels. So now we can come back to our table and we can select our H2. Now the H2, the color is going to be red, and the padding dash bottom is going to be 30 pixels. And the next thing, we are going to select our div.table. Inside this we have H1, and the H1, the font size is looking good, but we need to change this like 3 em, and this will give you a size like this. So here we go, we have I think there's a problem with my structure. Div.table, yeah. So I can remove these elements because it's been repeated, and now that's fine. So here it is, my class timetable and my working hours. And I can also add some padding from the bottom side, and it's also going to be 30 pixels. And now as you can see, there will be a gap between these two elements as well. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to design these buttons like this. So to do this, we need to select our div.table. Inside that we have UL. Now the UL is going to have list style type, and the list style type for this is going to be none. Now this will help us to remove these icons. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to select div.table UL, and inside UL I have LI. Now the display for this is going to be changed to nline-block, and this will help us to display these elements side by side, just like this. And for the UL, I can also add some padding from the bottom side of almost 30 pixels. So this will give you a result like this. And the next thing, I'm going to select div.table. Inside that we have UL, LI, and then we have A. Now the A is going to have border of 1 pixel solid, and the color is going to be something like this. It's going to have padding. Now the padding from the top side is going to be 10 pixels, from the left side is going to be 20, and it will give you a result like this. And the color is going to be black, and the text decoration is going to be none, and this will help us to remove the underline from these texts. And now we need to add a pseudo class of hover to these elements, and you can add a background color of red and a color of white. So this will be displayed like this: all classes, cardio, CrossFit, and powerlifting. And now you can add a class of active. So we already have this class, so you can write a code like this. You can copy this and you can paste it here, and you can add the class of active as well. Now the active class is going to have a background color of red, and it will have color of white. So as you can see, now this one is the active one, and we have another links as well. And the last thing which we are going to change, we are going to change our table design. So our table must look like this. To do this, we need to go back to our table, and we have to select our table, and we have to add a weight of 100%. Now this will be displayed like this: div the table, and the table with 100%. It's good. And the next thing which I want to do is that I want to add border dash collapse, and it's going to be collapse, and I'm going to add a border of 1 pixel solid and black. So let me check padding from the top and bottom, and from the left to right. Okay. And the next thing which we want to design is we need to select div.table. Inside that we have table, inside table we have th. Now the background color for the th is going to be something like this, which will give you the black color, and the color is going to be white. So this will be something like this. And we can also add some padding. So the padding is going to be 10 pixels, and we can add a border of 1 pixel solid and black. Now this will give you like this, or we are going to change this to white. And now we can select our TD. So here we go, div.table, and then we have table, and then side table we have TD. Now for the TD, you can add padding of 10 pixels. So you can refresh, and you can add border of 1 pixel, solid and black, and this will give you a result like this. You can add a gray color, so this will give you something like this. And the next thing which we can add div.table. Inside div.table we have table, and inside table we have a span, and you can change the display for this to block. As you can see now, this will help us to display these elements on the top side and these elements on the bottom side. And you can also add a font size of 1.1 em, and you can change the font width to bold. Font width bold. So here we go. And as you can see, we have something like this, and the color for this is going to be like this, which is almost like a black color. So here it is, we have successfully designed our table as well. And the next section which we are going to design is the BMI. To design the BMI, first of all we need to look the structure of BMI through HTML. So you can see we have a div by name of BMI. Inside this we have a div on the left side and another div for the right side. So we can go back to our CSS file and we can select our div.bmi. And the first thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to clear the both sides for this. And now we are going back to our HTML file and we just reload our page. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my div.bmi, and then inside this I have div.left. Now for the div.left I'm going to add a padding of 10%. Now 10 plus 10 will give us 20%. Now I only have a width of 30%. Now 30 plus 20 will give us 50. So the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to set this on flat left, and then I'm going back to div.bmi, and then I have div.right. So I will do the same for this as well. I'm going to add a padding of 5% for this and a width of 40%. And I'm also going to add flat right. And I will refresh my page, and now as you can see I have the body mass index on the left side and I have the form on the right side. If you want to add the same padding size, it won't create any problem, so you can do this as well. You can write 5% for the padding and 40% for the width, and then you can refresh your page, and now you can see this is looking much better. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to set an image for the left side. So here we go. I can write background image, and then I can just write the path for this picture. So let me find the picture from the image folder, and then you can see we have a picture by name of back.jpg. So you can write back.jpg, and then you can refresh this and go back to your browser and just reload your page. And before that you need to escape from this folder, and then you have to go back to your image folder. So now as you can see this is working much better. And the next thing which I have to do is that I have to create a margin from the top side. So here we go. I'm going to add 40 pixels of margin from the top side, and this will help me to add the space between these two elements. And now I'm going to add a color of white for my div. Here we go, color white. And now as you can see we have a white text on our div, And now I'm just going to add some more design for this element. So you can select back your div.bmi, div.left, and then we have h2. So the color for h2 is going to be red, so you can change it to red. So as you can see, we have a red text here. You can refresh this, and here it is. And the next thing is you can add padding dash top. So you can add padding top of 40 pixels, and it will allow you to add padding from the top side. And you can also add padding dash bottom, and you can add about 30 pixels from the bottom side, just like this. And now we can select our h1. You can select div.bmi, div.left, and then we have h1. Inside h1, now you can just increase your font size. So you can write font size, and you can write, for example, 3em, which is almost 300%. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to add text shadow. And now you can add 1 pixel, and the color is going to be similar to black. As you can see, we have now added a text shadow on it. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a little bit padding from the bottom side. So you can write padding dash bottom of 30 pixels. And this will give you a result something like this. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my div.bmi, div.left, and my paragraph. Now the paragraph is going to have line height of 1.5, and you can save this and go back and just refresh your page, and this will give you a result like this. And now we can design our form, which is located on the right side. Now to design our form, we have to select it first. You can select div.bmi, div.right, and then we have h1. Now we will start from the h1. Now our h1 is going to have a font size of 3em. And you can also add a background color to your div. So you can add background color of black, having a color of white, and it will look like this. And now I'm going to add a little bit padding for this. Now the padding will be added to the h1. So you can add padding, and the padding would be from the top side, and I can add almost 40 pixels. Just refresh your page, and now as you can see, we have 40 pixels of padding from the top side. And I can also add a padding from the bottom side of 20 pixels, and this will give you a result like this. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my form. So you can write div.bmi, div.right, and then your form. So inside form I have input. Now the type for them is going to be text, and I'm going to add a padding of 10 pixels, and then I'm going to add a width of like 40%. Just refresh your page, and now as you can see, we have added this successfully. And the next thing which I'm going to add margin dash bottom of 5 pixels. Now this will give you a result something like this. And now I can add a background color for this. Now you can add a background color, and the background color is going to be very similar to black, but it isn't black. It will be something like this. And then we can remove our border. So you can write border none, and I can also remove my outline. And we are going to add another border of 2 pixels, solid and gray. Now as you can see, we have something like this. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to add a color of white. So whenever you write a text inside them, the color is going to be white. And the next step is that we have to select our gender. To select our gender, we have to select our div.bmi, div.right. Inside form we have select. Now for the select, we can also add padding of 10 pixels. Now this will have a result like this. And now we need a width for this as well. You can write a width of 50% because the option group by default is smaller, so you can write something bigger to display it as same as your inputs. So you can just change it back to your 44% or 44.5%. And now as you can see, it's in the same size. And now I'm going to change the color for this. So I'm going to add background color, and the background color is going to be something like this, and the color is going to be white. And I'm going to remove the background border, or I'm going to add a border of 2 pixels, solid and gray. And just reload your page and just refresh, and as you can see, we have our option group like this. And the next button which I'm going to design is the calculate. Now you can select the calculate button using div.bmi. Inside div.bmi we have div. Inside div.right we have a form, and inside form we have an input where the type for this is submit. And we are going to add a margin from the top side of 30 pixels, and this will allow us to add a 30 pixels margin. And the next step, we are going to add a padding for this. Now the padding from the top and bottom side is going to be 10 pixels, and from the left and right side is going to be 20 pixels, and this will give you a result like this. And now we can remove our margin from the 10 pixels, or I'm just going to add 10 pixels of margins. And the next step is that we are going to remove the background. Now the background color for this is also going to be black, or it's going to be something like this. And the border is going to be 2 pixels, solid and gray. Now the color is going to be white. Just reload your page and just refresh, and now as you can see we have a submit button like this. And now I can add a width for this as well. Now the width is going to be about 90% because I need it to be a larger one, just like this. And here it is, our calculate your BMI form. Now the next step which we are going to design is our meet our expert trainers. Now to design this, we need a structure like this. So first of all, we need to check the HTML structure. Now the HTML structure, we have a div by name of trainer. Inside this we have h2, h1, and we have our gallery. So let's select this. You can select div dot. The name for this was trainer, so you can select the div dot trainers. Let me check it once again. It's not trainer, that is trainer. So I can copy this and paste it here, div dot trainer. And the first thing which I'm going to add is that I'm going to add clear boot, which will help us to display this element on its actual place. Okay, now the next step which I'm going to do is that I'm going to design these elements. Now you can select your div dot trainer, and inside this we have our h2. Now the h2 is going to have a color of red, so you can refresh and you can see we have a red color. And the next step which I'm going to do, I'm going to add a text align for these elements. So now you can add your text align to your container, and it will help all the elements to be on the center side. And now I can add a padding from the top side of 30 pixels, and it will help me to add a space from the top side of 30 pixels, or I can just increase it by 40 pixels. just like this. And the next step which I'm going to do, I'm going to add a padding from the bottom side. So you can select padding bottom and you can add 30 pixels. And this will help me to add 30 pixels padding from the bottom side. And the next step, I'm going to select my div.trainer. Inside this I have h1. Now my h1 should look a little bit bigger. So to do this, you can add font size of 4em, which means 400%, and it will be something like this. And the next step, I'm going to add color for this, and the color will be something like this, which gives you a very similar color to black. And then you can add padding from the bottom side. You can add padding dash bottom, and it's going to be something like 30 pixels. And here it is. And now we can design our gallery. To design our gallery, we need to have a look to the HTML structure. So as you can see, we have a class by name of gallery. Inside this we have our image, and then we have our caption. So let's do this. You can select your div.trainer. Inside this we have div.gallery, and for the gallery we are going to set a width of 25%, and we are going to float them to the left. And just refresh your page, and as you can see, we have floated them to the left side. And now on the div.trainer you can add a padding. Now the padding from the top and bottom, that from the top is going to be 0, or we are going to add 20 pixels, and from the left and right it's going to be 100 pixels. Now this will give you a result something like this. And the next step which we are going to do is that we are going to select our div.trainer, and inside as we have div.image, and then we have our image. Now our image is going to have a width of, now the image is going to have a width of 90%. And just refresh your page, and now as you can see, we have successfully set a width of 90%. And then we can just go back to our div.trainer, and then we have let me check the name for this. We have div.caption, and for this I'm going to add a border just to check where it is located. 1 pixel, solid and black. And as you can see, we have something like this. And let me add something else as well. I'm going to add a position of relative, and from the top side or from the bottom side I'm going to add 4 pixels. And now as you can see, these two will be merged together. And now if you add something like 100%, as you can see now, there will be no space between these elements. So this is how I have set a width of 90%. And the same thing I have to do for this as well. I can add a width of 90%, just like this. Now the next thing which I have to do is that I have to move them to the right side. So you can add left, and you can write 5 pixels. As you can see now, it's moving to the right side. So you can add something more like 10 pixels or something like 15 pixels. It's going to be 13 pixels. And now as you can see that it's working fine. And now I can remove my border, and I just can add a background color. So the background color for this is going to be black, and the color is going to be red, and this will give you a result like this. Now this is how we can design our meet our expert trainers. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my footer. Now to design the footer, first of all we need to have a look to the structure. So you can see we have footer, inside footer we have our divs. So you can select your footer first of all by CSS. You can just write footer and you can add clear both because we have floated elements on the top side. And now you can add a background image for them. Now the background image you can add using image folder, and inside this we have new bg.jpg, and you can refresh back your page and you can see this is our footer. Now for our footer we need to select our divs. So here we go, inside footer we have div. Now for each div we can set a color of white and just go back and just refresh your page. As you can see now the texts are displayed as white. And the next thing which we are going to add is that we are going to add a little bit of padding. So just you can see here we have a padding from the left and from the right side. So you can add your padding to the footer. You can add something like this. The padding from the top and bottom side is going to be 20 pixels, and from the left and right side you can add something like 40 pixels, and this will give you a result something like this. And now you can go back to your div and you can go back to your div, and then we can select our next element. So here we go, inside footer we have a div, inside div we have ul. So the ul should have no list style type, so you can write list style type none, and then you can just refresh your page, and as you can see we have no lists here anymore. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a little of padding between these elements. So you can select footer, inside footer we have div, and then we have li. Now for the li I'm just going to add a padding. Now the padding from the top and bottom side is going to be 5 pixels, from the left and right side is going to be 0. So this will help me to add a little bit of padding between these elements. And the next step which I'm going to do is that I'm going to set a float to the left side, and this will help me to display these elements to the left side, and this will be displayed as side by side. And now overflow hidden, and now as you can see this is working fine. So we don't have to write our overflow here. You can write our overflow here. And now I want to add a little bit of space between them, so you can write margin dash right, and I can add 20 pixels of margin between them, and just refresh your page and you can see they have the same width. And the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to set a width of 20%, and this will help me to justify this better. And the last thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to design my lengths as well. So you can write your footer, inside footer we have div, we have ul, li, and a. For the a, the color is going to be white, and the text decoration is going to be none, and this will help us to have our elements like this. And then you can select your h2 as well. You can select something like this, footer, inside footer we have div, inside div we have h2. Now the h2 should have a padding from the bottom side, and it should be at most 30 pixels. and this will help us to add some space between them. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to add a color of red. So you can add color red, and this will help us to display our color as a red. And this is how you can create your footer on the bottom of the page. So we are done with the CSS basic styles, and now we are going to add some responsive style to this website. And now the next step will be creating our website responsive design. So as you can see now, our website is not responsive for the moment, and when we just minimize or run just we change our size for the browser, you can see these elements will be displayed like this. And now to design it as responsive, the first thing which you need to do is that you need to inspect your page. So you can click on the inspect and you can see on which size you need to change or you need to add your responsive design. So I'm just going to change for the one device, and this device is going to be on size of 138 pixels. As you can see, the pixels on the top side here are 1040 pixels. So here we go. We will come back to our CSS file and we will write that add media only screen and maximum width of 1040 pixels, and just refresh your page. And now just to check is it working or not, we are going to write a body, and we are just going to change the color for the body to blue. And now just refresh your page and we will just resize our page once again. So we will just have a look. As you can see now, the body color has been changed to blue. It means that we have successfully changed our device size to 140 and the media query is now working fine. So now we can just remove this and we are going to select our properties from the top side. So now the first thing which I'm going to change is my div.main. So we are going to change our main div. So here we go, div.main. Now the div.main should have a padding of 0. We are going to remove all this padding, and we are also going to remove the margin. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a display of block for this as well. So here we go, refresh your page, and now as you can see on this size we don't have any padding or extra margins. And the next step is that I'm going to select my div.content or div.main, and inside div.main we have h1. So we are going to select directly this h1, and we are going to add a padding of 0, and we are going to add a text align to the center. So now as you can see, this is coming to the center. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to add a font size, and the font size has to be reduced. So we are going to add 2.5 em. And the next thing we are going to add a background color as well, because I want to display it as black. So here we go, background color is equal to black. And now you can just refresh your page and you can see that we have set our gymnast on the top side with no padding or margin. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my top nav. So now you can go back and write div.main, and inside div.main we have another div by name of top nav. Now for the top nav we are going to set a position of relative, and just go back and refresh your page, and from the left side I'm going to add 0, and from the top side I'm also going to add 0. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to remove the float to none, because it's been floated, and Now I just can add 1 pixel from the top side and 1 pixel from the left side. So let me check this if it's working. No, it's not working yet. So the position is relative div.main. Okay, so the problem is here. Okay, so let me change these values, left 0 and top 0 as well. It's now working fine. As you can see now, there is no padding and margin, and the element has also been displayed on the left side. So now it's working fine. And the next thing which I have to do is that I have to select my div.main, and inside div.main we have another div by name of topNav, and we are going to select the anchor elements. For this I'm going to add display of none, and this will help me to display none of these icons on this device size. And the next thing which I'm going to add is that I'm going to add a little bit of padding. So the padding which I'm going to add is 12 pixels and 14 pixels. And I will display back this using the responsive class, which I'm going to work later on. And then I'm also going to add a font size of 1 EM. And the next step which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my main. Inside div.main I have another div by name of topNav, and inside that I have a class by name of active. So to do this, you can just check your HTML structure very carefully. You can see we have a div by name of main, inside this we have topNav, inside this we have active. So this is how we're working with this: main, topNav, and active. Now for the active, I'm going to add a background color of red, and I'm also going to add a color of white. So if we just remove this, you can see we have lots of menus, and the first menu which we have changed is the active one. So now I'm just going to remove this because I'm going to call this back using a responsive class. And now I'm going to add another div by name of main. Inside this main we have topNav, and then we have our anchor elements, and we are going to add the pseudo class of the hover. Now the background color for the hover is going to be something like gray, so you can add your gray color, and the color for this is going to be white. And now if we just comment this, and you can see whenever you hover on these elements, this will show you hover of gray. And the next thing which I'm going to add is that I'm going to add an icon. So you can write div.main. Inside this we have div.topNav, and then we have an icon. Now the icon should be floated to the right side, and it should also be displayed as block because we had hidden this element. Now you can see it's coming back, and it will be displayed on the right side. And the next thing which I'm going to add now is I'm going to add my responsive classes. So you can write div.content or div.main. We have div.main, and inside div.main we have div.topNav, and then we can concatenate the responsive class, which is now going to be added by JavaScript code. So for the icon, now you can set a position of absolute, and I can just add top 0 and right 0. And the next class which I'm going to add is for the div.nav, and this is also going to have responsive class, and I'm going to change the anchor elements. Now the anchor elements should display as block. This is the first thing that we want. And the next thing which I want is that I want to float them as none, because I don't want them to floated. And then you can add a text align to the left, and you can just refresh this. And now, so we have added our classes very well, and now we can go back to our HTML file, and on the bottom of the file you can create a script here. So you can just cut this and you can just paste it inside your body. Now in this script I'm going to create a function. So here we go. I'm going to create a function by name of nf, or new function, and inside this function I'm going to create a variable, and inside this variable I'm just going to store my ID. So you can select document dot get element by ID, and let's have a look at what is our ID for the top nav. So as you can see, we have a class by name of top nav, and we are going to add an ID here. So that ID is going to be my top nav. And now you can just go back to your JavaScript and you can write my top nav. So now this statement will help us to select my top nav and store it inside X variable. And now you can write your expression codes, your conditional statement codes. And for the expression you can write fx dot class name is equal to, and you can write top nav. If your class name is equal to top nav, this should be concatenated with, so you can write something like this: x dot class name, you can append plus is equal to responsive. Now this responsive is the class name which we have used it several times in our CSS. Now if we just click on this button or any other button which you are going to set, now if the class is top nav, it will be changed to responsive, and then these classes will be called and this will be working. In other case, if we click back on this button, now this should help us to change the name back to top nav. So this is how we can work with it. And our class name, our function name is nf. So you can go back to your HTML and you can just come here and you can write on click. Now on click is an attribute of HTML. When you click on this will help us to call the JavaScript codes, and you can write your function name. Our function name is nf, and you can also write here something like this: JavaScript, and you can write void 0, means this should call JavaScript codes back. And now let's go back to the browser and just refresh your page. And before that I would like to remove these elements. So you can just click on this, or you can remove this and click. And now whenever you click on this, you can see we have our menus very well here, and whenever we just click back, the menus will be removed. So this is how we can design our responsive layout like this. And you can just see, whenever you minimize your page, it will be displayed like this. If you maximize, it will be displayed like this. Now this is how you can design your the responsive design like this. And for this design, the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to change my background, change my background size to content, and this will help me to display something like this. And I can also remove the repetition, so you can write something like this: background dash repeat and no dash repeat, and you can refresh your page like this. And now as you can see, we have these elements here like fitness 10 and something like this. To do this, you can go back here and you can write a code like this. You can write div.main. Inside div.main we have div.center. Now you can just write display, and we don't need this on this layout. You can just write display none, and this will help us to have no other text inside this. But once you open this in your computer, this will be displayed, but in your smartphones or your tablets this won't be displayed anymore. So this is the best practice that you can do ever. And the next thing which we are going to change, now we are going to change each and every element which we have inside this. And to do this, you can just write your elements here. Now the next thing which I'm going to select, I am going to select my div.section. Now my div.section should have a padding of 0. Now this will help me to remove these extra paddings. And if you have added any margin, so you can also add margin 0, and this will help us to have no margin at all. And now you can select your div.section, and we have a div.left. Now we can add a padding of 5%, and we can add a width of 90%, and we can also remove the float. So you can write float none, and this will be displayed something like this. And you can also change your text align, so you can write text-align and you can write left, so this will be displayed something like this. And for the muscle building, you can do the same. You can just write div.section. Inside this I have div.right, and for the right I'm just going to copy all of them because the structure is the same. So here it is, and as you can see this will be displayed like this. And now we are going to change these elements. To change these elements, you need to select your div.about, and you have to remove your padding. So you're going to remove your padding to 0. And the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to select div.about, div.left, and for the div.left you can add a padding of 5% and a width of 90%, and I'm going to add float none. So here we go, just refresh your page, and now you can see the image is going to be displayed on the center. And then you can select div.about, div.right, and you can do the same for your right div as well. Here it is, and now as you can see this will be displayed like this. And the next thing which we have is our this section, and as you can see we have learn more button as well. So in this page, if you don't want to display this, you can write something like this, div.about, and we have a button. So you can just call this display none, and this button won't be displayed on this size. And now you can go and change your div.tree. Now inside div.tree we have another div. Now for each div we can set a width of 90%, having a padding of 5%. And the next thing which we are going to add is that we are going to add float none. So as you can see now these elements will be displayed like this. And the next thing which we have is our subscribe our newsletter. So as you can see there is no problem with it at all. The only problem that we have is the font size. So you can write div.subscribe, inside that we have h1, and you can just reduce your font size to 2.5 em, and this would look much better. Or you can reduce it more, for example 2 em, just like this. And the next thing which we have is our div.table. Now for the div.table you can write div.table, and for the div.table you can add a padding of 5% and a width of 90%. Now this is the first step that we are going to do. And the next step which we are going to do is that we are going to select our div.table. Inside this we have h2. Now the font size for this is going to be 1.5 em. And we are also going to reduce our padding to 0. And the next step, we are going to select our div.table, and then we have h1. Now the h1 is also going to have a font size of 2em, and it's also going to have a padding from the top side of 10 pixels. So let me add a little bit padding, and it looks now very well. So as you can see now, these buttons are also working fine, so there is no need to change this as well. But once you change your browser size, it will be just displayed like this. Now for this design, you can add something like this: div.table. Inside that we have ul li. Now for the li, you can go back and you can just change your display to block, and this will be displayed like this. And then you can also go back and you can write div.table ullia, and you can also change this to block, and you can just refresh your page, and now you can see that the buttons will be displayed like this. So this is a good practice if you want to add your buttons as responsive. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to reduce our table size. Now to reduce your table size, to do this we need to come here and you can write overflow, and you can write auto, and you can just refresh your page, and now as you can see that you have an option to scroll your this layout. And the next thing which we are going to design is we are going to design our body mass index. Now to design this, you can come here and you can write div.bmi, and inside this we have div.left. Now for the div.left, you can just add a padding of 5% and a width of 90%, and you can add float none. You can also add background color, background image, and you can write contain. Background size, contain, and this will give you a result like this. And the next step which we are going to do is that we are going to select our right div. So here we go, div.bmi, div.right, and you can add a padding of 5%, you can add a width of 90%, and you can float it to none, and this will give you a result like this. And for this case, now the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to select our div.bmi, div.right, and we are going to select all our inputs. Now these inputs have to be displayed as block, and this will give you a result like this. And all of them should have a width of at least 90%. Okay, if it's not working, you can just add your attribute here. You can write type is equal to text, and then you can just refresh, and you can see now it's working. And the next step, now we have to change our select as well. So you can go back here and you can just copy this and paste it here, and just for the input you can just write your select, and you can add a width of something like 95%, and this will give you almost the same result. And the next and the last step would be our calculate. Now for this, you can just copy this once again, and you can paste it here, and you can just write here submit. Now your submit will also have a width of something like 95%. As you can see now, it's working fine. And the last step is that you can add a margin from the top side of almost 10 pixels. Now this will give you a result something like this. And for the select, we're also going to do the same. You can add margin dash top of 10 pixels. And the last thing which we're going to now change is our trainers here. Now to change our div.trainers, we can select this like this. You can write div.trainer, and for this we are going to add a padding of 5% with the width of 90%. Now this is our first step. And then we are going to change our text sizes and location. So the size looks good, only I have to change my div.trainer h1. Now the h1 is going to have a font size of 2em, just like this. And we can also remove some padding. So first of all, I'm going to set padding 0, and then for the h2 as well, I can select div.trainer, and then I can select my h2, and I can set the padding to 0. And now I will just add a little bit of padding from the bottom side. So you can write padding dash bottom of 20 pixels. Now this looks much better. And for this I'm going to do the same. Padding dash bottom is going to be 20 pixels. And the last thing which I'm going to change here, I'm going to select my div.trainer, div.gallery, and the gallery is also going to be floated to none. And I'm going to set a padding of 5% with a width of 90%. So this will look just like this. Now this looks much better. And the next thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my div.trainer, div.gallery, and inside div.gallery I'm going to select my image. Now the image width is going to be 100%. Just refresh your page, and this is now looking much better. And the last thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to select my div.trainer, div.caption. Now div.caption is also going to have padding of 5%, and it's going to have a width of 90%, and it's also going to have a position of relative left. If I add 100 pixels, now let me check if it's working fine. Yeah, it's working. So from the left I'm going to add 0. Now this is working well. And the last thing, now we are going to change our footer. So to change our footer, we need to do something like this. We need to select our we need to select our footer, and we need to add a padding of 5%, and we will add a width of 90%, and we are going to add float none. And inside footer we have now our divs. Now each divs are going to be floated to the none, and it will have their width of inherit, because the parent of this have 90% width, and the padding is also going to be inherit. So here we go. You can refresh and you can see the result very well. So this is how we can design our full responsive website. And now we will just go back and we will design our BMI, calculate your BMI design. And after that we will just add some some PHP and MySQL functions, and we will see how to make it as a dynamic website. In this part of the video, we are going to design our BMI from JavaScript. Now to do this, you need to go to your JavaScript file and you have to create a new file, and I'm going to create this file by name of BMI, and I'm going to name it bmi.js. And now let's open this using our Notepad++ IDE. And the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to find our BMI structure, and we have to name our form. So you can go here and you can write a form name, and the name for this form is going to be something like body mess. So the name which I have chosen is the body mess. And you should also have name for your inputs. So the first input which I'm going to have a name is the width. So I'm going to call this as W, and for the height I'm going to call this as H. And now you can go back to your BMI JavaScript file and you can create a new function. So here we go, we can create a function, and I'm going to call this function as double B. And you can have your parentheses and your curly braces, and then you can write a variable by name of W, and you can just go to your document and you have to find your forms, and the form name which we had given was about body mass. So let's have a look once again. As you can see, we have chosen a name of body mass, and inside body mass we have an input by name of W, and we have to just take the value of it and we have to store this on the W. And the same thing we are going to do with the height. So I'm going to create a new variable by name of H, and I'm going to select the value from the H and store it on the H variable. And now just to check, I'm going to alert my W, and let's have a look, is it working or not. Before that, you need to establish a connection between your HTML file and your JavaScript file, and you can do this in the bottom of your page, and you can write script, and you can write source is equal to, now we have a folder by name of JavaScript and we have a file by name of bmi.js. And to run your function, now you have to go back to your form, and on the button you can write on click is equal to, now you have to see what was your function name. The function name is double B, so you can write double B and you can add your parentheses. And now go back to your browser, just refresh your page and click on your button. As you can see now, this is working fine. If you write a value here and you just click on this, this will just return your value. And now the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to change this text to numbers, because whenever you just take the value from input, it will return as a text. The next step would be changing this text to numbers. Now you can create another variable by name of double W, and you can just call the parseInt function, and you can write your variable name W. Now this will help us, and this will change the W to integer and it will store on double W. And the same thing I am going to do for the height. So here we go, I'm going to change height to integer and I will store it on double H. And the next step is that we are going to write our functions. So the function will be written like this. You can create another variable by name of aim, and you can just select your height and you have to divide it to 100, and you also have to multiply it to 2. Now this is the body mass index formula. So you can just add another parenthesis like this. Now this will help us. The height will be converted to centimeters or to meters, and then it will be multiplied to 2. And the last step would be creating another variable by name of result, and inside result now we can just write w multiply m. Now this will help us. The weight will be divided to our result which is stored here, and then you can just go to your alert and you can write something like this BMI, and then you can concatenate it with result dot to fixed, and you can just have one. Now this will allow us to have only one digit after the decimals. So here it is, and now you can just save and go back to your browser and just reload your page. And now let's have a look. I'm going to write width of 90, and it's going to be 190. The age is going to be 30, and the gender will be male. Now this will calculate us the BMI to 23.7. Now whenever you change your values, the BMI will give you different result. 60 of 190, and the age would be 40, and the gender is male. And now you can see we have another type of BMI. So this is how you can calculate your BMI using JavaScript codes.